Welcome back, everybody, to Thrash Reviews, hosted by yours truly, Thrash Maniac 99, where I continue to review upcoming hard rock and heavy metal albums in the calendar year of 2016, all leading up to one of the biggest videos of the year, November-December time. It'll be the top 30 albums of the year, as well as potentially 5 worst albums if I end up getting clunkers here in the calendar year. But anyways, let's get into it. Today I am reviewing the newest release from Greek black metal masters, Rotting Christ. Now, granted, in my personal opinion, when it comes to this band as far as their style, it seems that in recent years they've kind of started to gradually move away from black metal, in my personal opinion, and more into something completely different. And this is their newest release called Rituals, which is an interesting album title, and interesting songs as well on this particular release. So, let's get started by first stating the fact that, personally, when I listened to this record, I was expecting to hear a really heavy, raw black metal album. Instead, it isn't a black metal album to me. To me, it's like combining all sorts of different styles, like some doom metal, some gothic stuff, even a bit of melodic death metal, in my opinion, as well as some more abstract, militaristic chanting and percussion going on. So to me, this would probably be considered avant-garde metal by music and metal purists, and I could see why, because it is very experimental and very diverse. So we're going to get started with the opening track, In Nome di Nostri, which is one of those examples of like militaristic percussion with like chanting going on. This is a really cool and powerful opening track to this particular record, and it just blew minds kapooey if anybody else has listened to this record. And this opening track definitely was the beginning of what was going to be a darkness fest with this album. The next track I want to talk about is Z Nigmar, which is one of those really aggressive tracks that sort of reminds me of listening to bands like Amon Amarth or even Arch Enemy with some of its ideas behind the music. It's very blast beat oriented and very heavy, and the vocals are very low and guttural and brutal. And that is always a thing I do respect about this band, is the fact that they're from Greece, but also the fact that they do attempt to try to make themselves very unique in the world of metal and not be a stereotypical black metal band or stereotypical heavy metal band. They just try to forge their own path, and it's like tracks like this, as well as stuff they did in the past with albums like A Dead Poem, or even some of their recent works like or actually, no, not A Dead Poem. I was reading something else. I get my knowledge of this band a little bit confused, but then again, what can you do? To skip along, we get to another track on the album that I really loved, and this is actually my favorite song of the album, For a Voice Like Thunder. Pure death doom right here, featuring Nick Holmes from Bloodbath and Paradise Lost, together with him and Sakias, this vocalist and guitarist of Rotting Christ. Put them together and you get one hell of a brutal track with the slow atmosphere, but with the death metal vocals alive from both guys, and it just created for a real dark, heavy, brutal track that has that haunting atmosphere behind it. And the lyrics certainly do reflect it, even though a lot of the lyrics on this album I think are Greek, their native language. It was still one of those things that just really captures your imagination if you try to translate and figure out what they're talking about. I can imagine it would just capture your brain and think, That's quite interesting what they're talking about. The next track I want to talk about is Conics on Pax, which I'm pretty sure I destroyed that. This is another favorite track of the album because, personally, it has a bit of an influence from bands such as Celtic Frost, especially on albums like To Megatherion or even Monotheist, where it's very dark, very experimental, and also very heavy. And this song really shows that Rotting Christ do have a bit of an affinity for bands such as Celtic Frost, or even bands such as Cathedral, to some degree, you could even throw in there for some of the tempo ideas. But then we get to the bookend track, which is called The Four Horsemen, and this is another one of those pure death doomy tracks that also, in a way, sounds like you're listening to the Monotheist album by Celtic Frost. Or really anything of Triptykon as well, since Triptykon's pretty much the Monotheist album by Celtic Frost times 10, if you ask me. But this track really has that dark apocalyptic nature you would find in a track called The Four Horsemen. And it was just one of those thrill rides of a song that you would hear in like other atmospheric metal bands like Agalok or even Opeth or Neobliviscaris to some degree. And also it kind of, in my opinion, almost heard a little bit of a Cradle of Filth influence with the vocals, with some of that kind of raspier low-end vocal approach that I heard in that track. I could kind of hear that personally, but still, it was a great way to close out. Again, more good. I don't know if it's just me or if the stuff is really that good that's coming out this year. There's been a lot of great stuff coming out here in 2016, and again, we're just in February. We still got a long way to go, but this album was unbelievable. 88 out of 100. Nothing on this album I thought was complaint-worthy whatsoever. However, like the middle portion of the album, the song, if I can attempt to say it, Les Lituanis de Satan. It was one of those tracks that didn't really get me 100%, but it was still a great track. I did like that parts. It was really, really catchy and really cool to hear. However, it was the weakest track of the album, but it was still a great track nonetheless. So yeah, once again, 88 out of 100 for Rituals by Rotting Christ. For those who are fans of this band, what did you think of this record? Leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. And this may be an album I might pick up as a CD at some point, because I really enjoyed this record. What can you say about the band? You know, they're starting to move away from black metal into more avant-garde, doomy, death metal styles. So to me, I don't think this was a black metal album by any stretch of the imagination. To me, this is purely an avant-garde metal record with some doom metal, some death metal, with some melody involved, and so on and so forth. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. Peace.